Hello and welcome to our meditation session. This session we're going to be practicing the mindfulness of breathing. Before we do the meditation though, I'll just say one or two things about meditation. Hopefully you might find them useful. Well, our aim when we do the mindfulness of breathing, of course, is to sit and become aware of the breath, of the process of breathing. But what seems to often happen is that this aim just seems to highlight, a mindfulness of everything else that's going on for us and in us. And it's important, first of all, that we acknowledge that. We can't expect to sit and immediately be completely absorbed in the processes of the breath. So we need to acknowledge that. Only if we do that will our mind start to quieten down, and then we will find it easier to just be aware of the breath. If we don't acknowledge that, not accepting that what is going on at the start of the meditation will probably result in a tussle that will create more unsettlement and distraction. So we can't shut out how we find ourselves when we first sit to meditate. So it's important, particularly, to just notice and maybe acknowledge those little voices that crop up all the time. The voices that, so maybe we're anxious or anticipating something in the meditation. Maybe we have a little voice that says, I'm not very good at meditation, or my meditation hasn't been going very well recently, or we may be, oh wow, I'm looking forward to this meditation, I hope it's like the last one. Whatever little voices are coming up. It's important to be aware of those. They can be, if you like, the more visible aspects of much deeper and less conscious views breaking through to the surface. And they generate often those recurring patterns of thought that it's so difficult to move away from. So if we just become aware of them, then maybe they fade away when we start trying to focus more on the breath. If they are more insistent, maybe, we can start to question them. This is often very useful. Is this voice true? Is it what it's trying to tell me or persuading me? Is it true? Is it helpful, the message that's being relayed? And by doing this, we can start to sort of see through them a bit, not believe them completely. And then if that happens, if we can withdraw some belief from them, then we withdraw some energy from them too. And without that energy, they will subside. So this is a process that, might be helpful if you're finding yourself, distracted and uncertain about how the meditation is going to go. So I'm going to lead us into the meditation, but first I'm going to introduce it with a poem by Han Shan, the 8th or 9th century Chinese master. Don't worry too much trying to understand it, just let the imagery have its effect, and hopefully it'll just help prepare just our state of mind for meditation. After the poem, I will spend a little time just making sure we're physically arrived and ready to meditate. And I'll finish the session with a poem as well. I thought, why not? A poem by Sangharakshita, called Peace. hopefully we might have actually got to some degree of peace by the end of the meditation session. So, just preparing ourselves to meditate by making sure we're comfortable. We're comfortable but able to stay awake, to be alert. We want to be relaxed and alert in meditation. So just taking a moment to settle. Just being aware of whatever's going on physically for us. Being aware of just the physical sensations of sitting and sitting relatively still. And just feeling our weight being taken. And we just relax into our weight being taken. Just allow our spines to rise, natural curves, upwards, not rigid, but upright, and the head balanced on the neck. And then our shoulders, we can just let them relax a little, let them drop. So maybe closing our eyes. And just trying to find some sense of receptivity, of just quietly listening to the poem, and then listening to ourselves, our body, our emotions, and our thoughts. Climbing up cold mountain. Clambering up the cold mountain path, the cold mountain trail goes on and on. The long gorge choked with scree and boulders, the wide creek, the mist-blurred grass. The moss is slippery, although there's been no rain. The pine sings, but there's no wind. Who can leap the world's ties and sit with me among the white clouds? The mindfulness of breathing. So we sit just aware of what's going on for us, how we are. But we can allow the breath to be at the centre of all that. The breath won't go away, it's always there. So we can keep coming back to that. And in this first stage, we can just, if it helps, use the counting to be aware of the end of the out breath. So this should help us relax and quieten our energies. Any voices or insistent thoughts going on, we can just acknowledge them. There they are. But we can also come back to the breath. And back to the physical sensations of the breath. The feeling of the passage of the air. The movements of the chest and the belly. A sense of expansion and then relaxation as we breathe in and out. So the aim is not to force our attention onto the breath, but just notice what else is happening, just acknowledging it, and then gently bring our attention back to the breath, the physical sensations of breathing. So in the second stage of the mindfulness of breathing, we just turn our attention more to the beginning of the in-breath. This should just aid, sharpen our awareness a little. So we can count before the in-breath. Count 1, breathe in, breathe out. Count 2, breathe in, breathe out. Count 3, breathe in, breathe out, so on, up to 10 and then coming back to 1. So we can just encourage ourselves to be curious about the breath. Our mind seems quite ready to be curious about all kinds of things when we sit to meditate. But let's just see if we can get it more interested in the breath. What does the breath feel like? How does one breath differ from the other? We can say that each breath is unique. No two breaths are ever the same. So the movements, changes of temperature, passage of air, expansion and relaxation. We can just explore those experiences. If our mind wants to go off exploring elsewhere, well, that's okay. We can just notice that, acknowledge it, and just bring it back to the breath. And just encourage a sense of curiosity and investigation into what breathing actually feels like. Just staying with the breath. So in the third stage, we can drop the counting and just be aware of the whole of the breath, the rhythm of the breath. Maybe as if we were sitting by the seashore, just being aware of the rhythm of the waves as they move in and then recede again on the shoreline. We just sit with the rhythm of the breath and the movements that create that rhythm. Just coming back to the breath, doing that gently, kindly, but with a sense of this is where you want to be, sitting with the breath, with the physical sensations of breathing. Just allowing the breath to take us deeper to a quieter place. In the fourth and final stage, we just let our attention rest on the spot where we can first feel the air as it becomes our breath. So this was likely to be around the nostril or the upper lip, the subtle sensation. And we just focus on that spot where the air becomes our breath and the breath returns to the air again. In the background there may be other thoughts, feelings, things going on. We can just let those be there, acknowledge them, but just gently come back to that point. It's not a forced or a harsh focus, but a receptive, open, gentle one, investigating the experience, the sensations at that point on the upper lip or around the nostril. Be aware of the change of temperature as the air passes backwards and forwards. Be aware of the rhythms involved. And if our mind's wandered off, that's okay. The important thing is to notice it. And then gently, maybe firmly, bring the mind back to that point, back to that spot. And just let our attention rest there. And then just for the last couple of minutes, we just relax the attention on the breath. And we just sit, just taking in how we are, what effect the meditation has had on us. We just sit quietly with ourselves. Peace. Turn away from the world, weary pilgrim. There is no rest for thee there. The quietness of star-communing hills 'twere better for thee to share in the silence that lies at the forest's heart, breathes a peace beyond compare. In glades where spring buds quicken, when frosts no more appall, in fields and leafy by-lanes red with ripened fruits of fall, the leaves, now green, now yellow, teach that change must come to all. Comes peace, more cool than the moonlight is that silvers the gilding stream, when the stilled heart knows in the forest depths the world is but an empty dream, and turns with delight to the things that are from the things that merely seem. Okay, thank you for your company, and stay well, and see you again. Well, you'll see me again soon. Bye-bye.